Now we're recording. So welcome everybody to this part 2 of our digestive health and microbiome class for Farmhouse Classroom. Again, we have Anne Marie and Henrietta joining us. Thank you, ladies, for coming back for round 2. If you missed the first class, no worries. There is a recording available online. That is available on the Facebook page, and I actually have it posted on a YouTube link too. So you should be able to find that. If not, let me know if you want to plug back into that first version. But if you didn't see that and didn't get to catch up, no problem. There will be plenty of great information in this session as well. Ladies, if you don't mind taking just a second to introduce yourselves to people that might not know you. Henrietta, go ahead.
I was giving Anne-Marie the first go.
Oh, Anne-Marie, you go ahead, please.
So my name is Anne-Marie Cantrell, and I am here in Berks County and work as a healing food chef and a food educator, and I have a small fermentation business. So a lot of the work that I do is really based around gut health, but it's also really based around just teaching people really ways to prepare food so that their bodies can assimilate the food and, they can feel great. And I work a lot with local producers, and we do a lot of wild foraging and just all kinds of fun stuff.
Awesome.
My name is Henrietta Alban. I'm a doctor of naturopathy, and I have a private practice in downtown Reading across from the library. I've been doing what I'm doing for the past 22, 23 years. And to me, gut health is where I started, and apparently it's where I end as well. It seems so absolutely evident that we really have to focus on there. And the beauty of the work that we're doing and what we've been sharing last time, and Anne-Marie is going to give a synopsis of what we did last time so that it sits a bit better for people who want to later listen to the recording, is that there's no more one size fits all. You have no idea how much this excites me, because we have been fighting, you should eat that and you should eat this for so long. So to me, and I think all of us, right, Anne-Marie, who work in this field, we just feel that it's finally time for people to take ownership, and they can when they know what they have to do. And tonight we're going to try to tell you how that works or what we can. And please feel free to ask questions in between. I mean, I got my chat up, and so I think Anne-Marie, you get started, right?
Sure. So yeah, I'm excited to be back for this part 2 of gut health. But just to recap a little bit what we talked about 2 weeks ago, we really just dove into the importance of gut health, and we talked a lot about all of these little microbes that live in this symbiotic relationship with us. So we cannot really separate ourselves from the bacteria that live on us and in us. And the more that we know about these bacteria, they help us detoxify, they produce certain chemicals in our body. The gut microbiome makes up about 80% of our immune system. So it's really important that we understand the inner workings of our body and our microbiome, and that we learn how to protect it. And we talked a lot about the kinds of things that break down our microbiome or create this dysbiosis in our gut. So if we have too many pathogens and not enough of the good bacteria, and we talked about, things like eating highly refined foods, sugars, processed foods, flours. We talked a lot about genetically modified organisms and the role that glyphosate or the Roundup plays that is sprayed on the food like that. Roundup is basically an antibiotic that will kill off our good bacteria in our gut, but still allow those pathogenic bacteria to thrive. So the importance of, making sure that the food that we're sourcing is GMO-free, but also not sprayed with glyphosate. And we talked about other foods that might not be genetically engineered, but are sprayed with glyphosate, like a majority of the grains and the pulses, like lentils and beans and things like that. So or, you know, important to buy organic in certain things so that we're not being contaminated with the glyphosate. And then we talked about ways to help our bacteria thrive in our body, and we talked a lot about prebiotic foods and making sure that we're adding those foods in, like foods in the allium family, so garlic and onions and leeks. We talked about Jerusalem artichokes. They're very high in a compound called inulin. And we also talked about burdock. So I wanted to show you today what burdock is because I went out and got some. So burdock is a root that it's growing all around, and what we see are the big, broad green leaves on the ground, and then it grows up and gets these little burrs on it. But when we're talking about burdock, we're actually talking about the root. And this is a really skinny burdock, but it is dark brown, very, very earthy, but it is so rich in inulin. And when I make burdock, you know, if there's visible dirt on it, I will wash it. If there's not, I usually don't, but I do not peel it because there's so many bacteria on the skin over here that I really want all of that nutrition in there. So Kimberton Whole Foods in Douglasville does carry burdock, and they carry it in a bag. So you get about, I don't know, 7 or 8 slices like this. And maybe I can send Courtney a recipe. I just usually saute it with onion or leek, garlic, ginger, carrots to give it sweetness, and then the burdock, and then maybe finish it off with a little bit of fresh ginger juice and sesame oil, and get a really nice saute that you can mix with, you know, rice and a stir fry. So a really great way to get the prebiotics in, and I just love burdock. We also talked about the dried burdock, and this is just an example of a dried burdock that I use for tea, which is very blood cleaning, but it does not have the inulin in it. So you get the inulin from the prebiotics from the fresh, and then this is dried. And I think that's it. And what we're going to talk about tonight is just the connection between the gut and the brain. And, you know, many times our gut microbiome is called the enteric nervous system, or the second nervous system, because there are so many neurotransmitters in our gut. And so many of our neurotransmitters are actually produced in the gut, like serotonin. And, you know, I think that we intuitively know things, right? We always say like, oh, well, I got a gut feeling, or, you know, that doesn't sit right in my gut, or, you know, I was really nervous, I had butterflies in my stomach, right? So we always tend to feel things in our gut over here. So we're going to talk about that whole connection between the gut and the brain tonight. And I know Henrietta talked last time, we talked about leaky gut, and when our tight junctions in our guts open and allow different food particles and things and chemicals to pass through into our bloodstream, well, we also have tight junctions in our blood-brain barrier that is very permeable and can open. And so when we talk about things like mood disorders, depression, anxiety, things like that, it's also very, very useful to look at the gut and see what's happening in the gut. So that's our talk for tonight.
Thank you. That was great. I'm going to share my screen, I think, for the next parts of this. Let me just, if anybody else has joined us. Hi, Jane. That's good. We got some more people. Hello. Hi, Marcia. Okay, super. All right. So the basic premise of the microbiome is, in fact, the sum of our experiences. I mean, throughout our lives, it's the genes we inherit, it's the drugs we took, the food we eat and ate, it's the stuff we get from our parents or not, depending on how we made it out into the world, C-section or natural vaginal birth or breast milk or formula. All of these make a difference in how our microbiome grows. And even the hands we shook makes a difference. So let me just start sharing my screen. Hang on 2 seconds while I do this again. Okay. So today what we wanted to talk about is Let me just see if I can do this right. Okay. So this is an interesting picture of the microbiome too, if you haven't seen this one yet, because can everybody see it?
Yes,
Okay,
you're
great.
good. You're good.
Because it just shows everywhere where the microbes are, and like the skin has a microbiome, the brain has one, our groin has one, every organ has a microbiome, and the microbiome, that is the connection between the brain and the gut, is connected through the vagus nerve, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So the stress in the body, we've started to call everything stress that is emotionally unsettling or that is mentally too challenging. You know, whether it's exams or a job interview, whether it's much worse disruptions such as the death of a loved one, or the fear of not knowing where we're going next really affects our microbiome. And we are currently and have been in a situation that is so intensely different for different people. Some people have lost people and they still manage to function. Others are perfectly fine, but so rattled with fear and so uncertain about what's going to happen, so afraid of their future or their, what's happening next, and not knowing, so totally thrown out of their normal lifestyle, that causes an enormous amount of stress. And the fact that we're mostly cooped up and have to walk around like we're bandits, and we have to learn we have to learn now to read eyes, it's hard. It's rough on a lot of people. So the stress and the fear that we feel, we do actually register in our gut. So the stress changes the microbiome, the microbiota, and it reduces immunity almost immediately. Now we have quite a bit of reserves, but overstress, chronic stress, creates an acidic body and also favors pathogens. And that's basically the key to the acid-alkaline balance, is that the body is by function acidic, but by nature alkaline. All right. So, for example, you don't want to alkalize your entire system in all ways, because we know that the stomach juices are very, very low acid. They're like motor oil. It's like 2.2, 2 pH to break down the food, to do that. And that is why we have these protective things that actually they're called Peyer's patches. They put out the mucus, a protective mucus around the stomach lining, that then protects us and our gut and our sensitive mucosa, the lining, with a protective shield. So people, for example, who have chronic acid reflux don't have enough acid, not too much acid, but they lost the ability to break down things. So a little hydrochloric acid as HCl as a supplement might help them. So when we have red blood cells that agglutinate, we have an overacidic body, which means that the fluids in our body become acidic and the blood becomes acidic. And what that does under microscope, it basically clogs and agglutinates and the red blood cells, so you have less oxygen in your body and less energy. The other piece from chronic weakness from stress that we experience is that the sympathetic nervous system is the one that goes and does. It's like the conscious mind. It goes and does, and it's on the go, and it is incredibly active, and it's inventing new things, but it is also the area that reacts from a place of, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Oh no, let me finish this. Oh no, I can do all of this. And familial demands, children demands, job demands, all of that. And again, if our home life or our own inner alignment is not harmonious, that becomes an ongoing stress response. Even though it appears positive in a way because we're getting stuff done, we are not using self-care. So that too is disruptive to the healthy immune resistance. And what happens at that point is that chronic influx weakens our tissues and weakens our brain capacity and weakens the microbiome, where it is actually unable, because it doesn't have the right balance, to create the serotonin, the dopamines, the endorphins. in the body, all of which are essential for our balance, for our healthy existence. The parasympathetic nervous system is regenerative, repairing, it's restful, it's renewing. So that is when we have sleep disturbances, right? When we have sleep disturbances, we are in our sympathetic nervous system. We don't spend enough time in the parasympathetic nervous system. Deep breathing will help this. Some things that meditation, becoming conscious of your mind racing, gut feelings like Anne-Marie just explained. We feel things in our gut, in our throat, in our chest, in our hearts, pressure in the head. And all of that and you can see how the effects over a stressful body is everywhere, from skin to muscle, the gut, the heart, the brain. It is affecting everything. Now, the body is a master at compensation, but when it affects all of these very important pieces, we end up in a space of, I don't know where to start. And I'm pretty sure most of you have felt that at times, that I am so lost here. What is this thing happening on my skin? Why don't I sleep? And I get, palpitations, and suddenly I don't have strong enough muscles, and my hormones are off, and so it's all sorts of things that are going on. So of course the triggers, you have to answer that yourself, and if you'd like to put some in the chat, we can talk about that too. What are the triggers? Okay, so essentially the outer triggers are environmental. Now, they could be physiological, or they could be like work related or family related, like the demands I mentioned a bit ago. And so the outer triggers are environmental. So we have a definite, our environmental trigger right now. There is this synthetic virus that has been loosened onto people. How and why, nobody really is sure. Lots and lots of suppositions floating around. The fact is, it kills. And the fact is also that most people survive it, because we are innately capable of creating an immune system. And what that actually means is that any kind of attack on our immune system is a challenge, yes, but then creates antibodies, because our native defenses come up, our T cells, our white blood cells, they come up and they start enveloping whatever is triggered and was triggering it, and safely eliminate it. So the current one, the big issue with the current disease, with this novel coronavirus, is that it specifically targets the lungs. And since the body actually encloses all intruders, similar to the wax in a beehive with mucus, when the lungs are affected and mucus thickens, and that makes it very hard to breathe. Okay, so it's like almost like you're drowning. And there's an extra trigger in there, and that we hear that ventilators actually don't work, especially the ones that have been used. There are others that would, inhalers, but not these. And people actually are no longer able to uptake oxygen. And that is a red blood cell issue. And the body gets so sick that the red blood cells clog together. Again, like I said earlier, we cannot uptake oxygen. And that basically is what has killed people as well. And it is dramatic, and it's scary as all get out. You in essence suffocate, and it's really awful. There's lots of doctors who have spoken about this, and we haven't heard anything official about any of it. The other triggers are when there is waste and toxins in the body. That is, so it's the inner stress. So that's a native stress when we're imbalanced, when we have eaten poorly, when we have been exposed to a lot of stress, when we don't eat well enough to clear our system, when we never fast. There is a lot of recommendation that we could fast 1 day a week, 36 hours. Just drink water, and if you need to worry about your blood sugar, dilute some fruit juices or do some vegetable juicing. But just don't go to heavy food that needs digestion. The body will start cleansing immediately. That it is the command. It always does that. So the holistic model is actually really very, very smart in your body, So a healthy microbiome begets tryptophan, which creates then serotonin, which then creates happy emotions. And healthy microbes, that produces glutathione. Glutathione is the master antioxidant in our system. There are people who say you should take some glutathione. You can't absorb it. There is different ways in which people have taken 3 or 4 supplements just to get a bit of the glutathione, but you can't get it from the outside. Again, you need to have healthy microbes and a healthy way to choose them. And the more diverse your microbiome, and the better your attitude, which is really funny. The Viome test, which I will get to in a minute, but let me just say this. It's Viome, like instead of biome, it's with viome.com, tells you what bacteria and what viruses and what microbes are dominant in your body, in your gut, through a stool sample. And they give you also digestive advice and supplement advice, and actually a diet that is really specific to you. So this is the vagus nerve, all right? So we talked last time quite a bit about the vagus nerve. It's the yellow piece that goes, you can see where it starts all the way, we'll start on the left, all the way on the bottom, and it runs like a ladder all the way up the body. And it is active in every single organ, and it has this branching that is around the kidneys. It goes further up, it's around the digestive system, and you can see that even more on the right side. But it goes all the way up to the trachea, and this one doesn't have, this one stops at the trachea. The one on the right, you can see how it goes all the way from the bottom along the spine. See all these little nooks it has into every space in the vertebra? That's what's really important, because this is our, we have several nervous systems in our spinal column. And when we're looking at this, you can see how it is lovingly has its fingers inside on the bottom right, has its fingers in everything we do, right? In the bottom, there is the digestive piece, the lower abdomen. Then you come up, and there is the stomach and the pancreas. You go further up, and it connects. Everything connects like a ladder, like a grid. And it is wrapped around the heart a little bit, but around the lungs in particular. And then it comes up to the head, and you can see how it even goes to our eyes. So all along, it follows the brainstem, and this is a very good illustration how it actually gets to our, how it feeds also our cranial nervous system. All right, so it's, you can see this, that if you look at the text, it absolutely touches every part of us. And it's really super important to understand that all of that is fed from the gut microbiota. So you can see physically how intense the connection is. All right, are there any questions so far? I can't see the chat. Okay. Okay. So the major causes of stress, I don't think we need to spend much time here. We've already done it, but take a quick look. It's just about anything that makes us unhappy, anything that is a disturbance. Now, having seen that, our lives are built on disturbance, they're built on disruption, so that we can then get back to balance and we can do things and just basically feel better about things. So anytime you feel stressed, you can switch to ease. Deep breathing does it instantly. All right. Notice your physical symptom is another thing. You know, do you have this hollow feeling in your stomach? Is your throat closing? Is there a part of you mentally that protests what someone has said to you? Does your ego rise and say, well, I need to defend myself now, or they shouldn't have said this, or they should have said that? All of these are resistance to moments of what is, right? So, for example, the other option you could do is inhaling nature's microbes when you go for a forest walk. All right. I was listening to Eckhart Tolle before the call, and he has been very thoughtful in the way he has been teaching us. And he talks about chaos and order. And he talks about how much we are actually so used to and focus on order as much as we possibly can, But at the same time, life brings us these, jabs from left and right. And so it creates disruption and even chaos, depending on how intense the shifts are and how intense you experience your changes. What happens with that is that the moment you notice something like that, it is time to take a deep breath. It is time to get out of your head. If you and when you have time to do that, you can go and check out those thoughts that you had, and you can find out why that was just so incredibly important to you to be right. We have this old saying in the holistic community, you want to be right or do you want to be happy? So this is really interesting. That's really self-explanatory, but it blows you away. Before you see all this red, it's stress. Red in the body, in thermography, and in all scans is usually alarm. It is heat, and it's inflammation. And inflammation is also a problem of leaky gut, for example. So when there is inflammation in the gut, when the tight junctions, which I explained last time with my fingers, right, they're supposed to be like this, and then they get opened from the glyphosate, from poor eating habits, from drinking, from any kind of real excess. And then when that happens, you are in a space of imbalance, serious imbalance. Leaky gut leads to inflammation everywhere, in the brain, in the gut. Somebody asked me about their father recently in email, and asked about castor oil packs, and said his father, did I say this last time? Did I talk about this last time? No. The father had a glioblastoma, and the man wanted to know whether he could use castor oil on the brain or where he should put it. So I told him what I knew about it, and that is that castor oil packs on the gut are actually really, because then the vagus nerve is capable of creating new connections in the various nervous systems that you've seen in the previous picture here. So what's really interesting is that the vagus nerve, then what we see, for example, let's just imagine for a moment that you have kidney issues, which is on the left side, very clear, right? You would have a disruption of the vagus nerve to get to the kidneys. There would be a disruption there, and so there would be inflammation in the kidneys. If you have it in your lungs, if you have it in your gut, both times really well illustrated on the right, just imagine cutting some of those yellow lines, and you can see how instantly the life force and the communication from your gut to your brain is disrupted, is instantly is gone. And so the castor oil packs, we don't really know how it does it, but it does it. It's an old Edgar Cayce remedy, and I've used it many times. You can really, and use it for my clients too, you can put that on your gut like 3-4 nights out of the week and sleep with it. They make these pads that you can just strap around you and put the castor oil in, and it's not half as messy as if you have to do it, with the towel and the plastic and the sheet and all of that. But it's not complicated, and it has a lot of benefit. And I also suggested that he massage the brain with castor oil. And so he gets it both places. Then CBD oil is another way that the castor oil, that the vagus nerve is nourished to the brain. That's actually also something that builds nervous system connections. Excuse me. Not everybody wants to meditate, but you don't have to sit in lotus position. I'm sure you've heard that. You can just sit comfortably, even leaning back, not in bed, not as good. You want to sit upright. But you can certainly have your lower back or your back supported. Just make sure that your head is free. That is always a good idea. And if that's what it does, after 10 minutes, you think you can afford 10 minutes of meditation? Be great. This is Access Bars is an energy treatment with 32 holes on the head, very gently, that I actually perform, that I offer. Courtney put down my website a little earlier in the chat. You're free to go and just look at on my website to see what it does. This is before, okay? And this is after. That's probably about 25 minutes, 30 minutes of bars, of holding the bars, and it is intense. I mean, the experience people have most commonly described is not just like real deep peace. It's very nourishing, because when we don't do self-care, How many times do you get to lay fully clothed, pampered on the back, on your back on a massage table, and somebody just gently holds your head, you know, and it's just so nice. And your body responds by sending people colors and by relaxing them. The energy flows all through their bodies. Really fantastic. It's interesting. Okay, so the mood and emotions. It was funny. I was looking at that and was actually writing some notes about this because I thought it was just so interesting how we respond. Just taking my own example, I used to be very impatient and I used to also be very constipated. So do you think there might be a connection between our experience of our bodies, the elimination, and our moods? And absolutely, yes. I just never put the two together before I started looking at the microbiome. So if somebody's constantly in a sour mood, acid reflux maybe, but they really have a seriously imbalanced microbiome, right? Because they don't get to ever the place where dopamine, which is the reward hormone, ever goes to take hold and really give them an idea. This is why traditionally, and from research, men need 9 hugs a day. Women need 5. We all need hugs, but men need 9 hugs a day because I think it's in the biology of men to be more stressed. So be kind to each other. When we can again, hug. Yeah. All right. So look at your cravings. Are your cravings for carbs, for salty things, for crunchy things, for all of that? All of these are indications that your microbiome is sending up signals saying, yo, give me some of this. Not necessarily good. Well, I have a craving. I'm listening to my body. I'm just giving it what it wants. That's not happening for you. This is your gut that's talking. These are the microbes. And when you have cravings for things that you know fundamentally are not giving you energy, are going to cost you more to break down and digest and eliminate, you can pretty much be sure that you end up with microbial language skills. They say, okay, I have a real cramp here. I don't feel good there. So going unconscious is what I call when somebody just lashes out, when they just have a real problem and they have no patience, when they need to be right, when to, notice what you notice. All of that happens when your microbiome is not balanced, and it helps to have a spiritual practice. There's no question that the spiritual and the emotional go hand in hand with the physical. Okay. Some people have suggested that ask yourself questions. Sometimes I have people put sticky notes on their bathroom mirrors or other places, Courtney, right? Where we just say, okay, when you are in that place, ask yourself this question, is it really so hard? Is it true? Can you absolutely know this is true what you're feeling? So do a little Byron Katie work. And then, of course, tapping is always great. You can tap right on your collarbone and say, this sucks. I really feel lousy about it. I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed, etc., etc. But you can say, even though I feel that way, I choose to love and accept myself. All right. People say, well, I can't possibly say this. You don't have to mean it. You just have to start saying it. Bless you. Okay. So the digestive peaceful essence. You bless your food, you put your hands over your plate before you eat. I think last year when I gave a similar talk, I described how in one of my first classes in 96 or something, 95, that had to do with muscle testing and energy work. My teacher gave me, we were in New Jersey and they have, in a hotel. So they have these glass pitchers with water or plastic rather, and lots of ice in them. And I brought my own water, but he said, why don't you pour yourself a glass of this? And in front of the class, he muscle tested me for the glass in one hand and my arm out the other. And I tested, no way, no good for me. Then he said, well, hold the glass in your hands for a few minutes. So I did that, still stood there waiting for the change to happen. I didn't notice a thing, nothing. And he came back and he said, so let's try this again. And my arm was solid. Because what happens, and all the meridians and your energy centers end in the fingertips of your hand, and your hands have great healing power. If you've never tried that, you could really try to go very slowly, bring your hands together very slowly, and just perceive where the tension is, where you can actually feel the energy between the surfaces of your hand, right? So I can feel it right there. And any of us who have done healing work, you know, we feel heat and cold, we feel uneven vibrations, and it's a bit of a training, but it really works. It's great. So putting this over your food is a great favor. It's awesome. Okay, then you see what you're doing here, 20 to 30 times chewing. Give thanks for the soil. Haste makes eating acidic, and don't have meetings. Don't have meetings when you do that. Oops, sorry. So here are some very good probiotic benefits, which are good for the gut and the brain. If you find the product that has all of them, and many of them do, plus some, I would suggest you take notes on this one. I'm going to give this a couple of minutes. So the different lactobacilli, the plantarum, the acidophilus, the brevis, they have to do with settling a healthy microbiome. What I want to say too is that if you find that you're imbalanced, or if you have gut issues, you might want to think about using aloe as a base. And Anne-Marie talked about burdock root and inulin. Inulin is one of the more important prebiotics. A prebiotic essentially is a fiber that promotes the inner terrain, that promotes the bacteria to actually want to create a home. And that's the good guys, right? So these are all good guys that are on our side and that are really helping. Then the next ones are bifidobacteria and the lactis and longum, and there are many others, but these are recommended for brain health, obviously gut health, but these are recommended for brain health. So if you forget a lot or you feel that you're not all there, it does not have to be that you're having a brain problem. It may just be to have your gut problem. Intermittent fasting is an option. You know, you can look it up. I wrote a small blog about it on my website. Creating order in our lives is what we do when we come back to balance, right? I mean, from disorder to order, where we get this exhale, we feel really good about it. Okay, taking ourselves not too seriously, I hope, but seriously enough to do self-love and self-care. It seems to be hard for women to do that because we end up feeling that we owe the world our life force. And I think my generation in particular was like affected by that. But I find younger women too who don't say no and who would do very well learning to say no. It's a full sentence. So finding balance, yes, this is what this is all about. So the regular self-care, body, mind, inside and out, all of these things we're talking about really does promote a spiritual practice that also soothes our body, right? Body metta in Sanskrit means loving kindness. And I wake up in the morning and I say, thank you, my body, for healing. Thank you for my healing. And, you know, even in meditation, when we go Svarupa Yoga, there is a lot of attention on the physical body as we're brought up from toes to top of our head. Paying attention to the body is really important. Loving it is important. Being in gratitude is important. Forgiveness, you know, if you still find that you have a hard time forgiving someone for something happening in the past, this is also taking care of your microbiome. You know, it's not just from the outside in. It is not just, you know, sleep and rest. It is also what's still bugging you. Where do you have a hot button? And that is nice. I like this quote a lot. Yeah. Everybody got it? Yeah, good. Stop share. Okay. All right. So I know this was a bit of a monologue, but it wasn't meant to be. It's as if we were doing it live. And a really easy way to get into creating balance in your microbiome is noticing what you eat. And if it feels good to you, and what feels not so good when you've eaten it. And it is okay. This is not for the rest of your life, you know. I usually tell people do a month. And the mind goes, oh, I can't, it's too much, it's too long, I'm going to miss this and that, I'm going to miss out. I can't even go out. I had a client who said, well, then I can go out drinking. And I'm going like, well, honey, it's this or that, choose, and people do it when they're in the right mind and at the right time. Hey, Beth. Okay, guys, do we have any questions? Hi, Marty. What are you doing?
If I can just piggyback off of a couple of things that you said.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I'm losing my internet connection. As you were talking, I kept thinking this is such a different time for everybody. And, we're feeling stress, we're feeling trauma, but we can also look at it as as an incredible gift, because now we have the time to really take care of ourselves and take care of our families. And here we are finding ourselves, thankfully, in springtime. And today we had a beautiful, gorgeous, sunny day, that we can really start to be very mindful about what we're eating and how we're eating and how we're preparing food. And then that led me to think that we've been doing this 6 weeks maybe or something, that now we're starting to see reports that some supermarket shelves in certain areas are getting very sparse, and farmers are needing to dump produce and slaughter their animals. And it's not a very nice story, but it also comes back to the point that if we really want to truly nourish ourselves, we need to get back to the soil, and no better way to do that right now than go out and start supporting all of our local farms, because that's where we're going to get the most nutrient dense food. And then if you feel like taking up gardening, actually going out and working in the soil, right, and getting all those microbes from the soil, into your body. So it just is a little bit of a reframe how we can use this time and really see it as a gift. And I know one of the things that I do for vagus nerve stimulation, is hum and sing. Just to
you know what I do? I gargle. No, I'm serious, really out loud in the shower. So you gargle really, like really deep in your throat. And there is a connection that stimulates the vagus nerve too. I just forgot this. Go ahead. Sorry. It's just cool.
I was thinking, a doctor once had me, and I don't like doing it, but I have a very strong gag reflex. And so he said my vagus nerve needs stimulating. So to actually kind of do that with a toothbrush, but I can't do that. So I'd rather gargle or hum or sing or splash cold water on my face.
It's funny. I used to have a huge gag reflex. You couldn't come near me with anything, so not great for your sex life, but for the rest of it.
I was waiting for it.
Not me too well. Okay.
And then just another thing that I was thinking of when you were talking about the red blood cells and all of that, another thing that we can do for our health while we're also at home is turning off our wireless when we're sleeping at night.
Yeah.
And making sure that, we don't have these aberrant energy fields that now we know also affect our blood and have also cause those red blood cells to agglutinate like that as well. So, just another thing to make sure you're getting really restful sleep.
I think that's really an important suggestion, because especially since we're looking at all the hullabaloo around 5G, which is not for people, it's for industry, it's for consumerism. It has nothing to do with our health, and it really blows us to bits. It affects our DNA really, really bad. What you can do is you get the yellow Ethernet cable while you're working at your desk. And I have usually one computer off and the other one on Wi-Fi if I do research or I'm writing, so that I can easily switch back and forth. And then my phone is on airplane mode for a lot of it. And none of that goes into my bedroom ever. I don't sleep with it. I mean, like I'm in Reading, right? So don't you think I get bombarded? But at least the intention is that I don't add to it. I don't add to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. I'm all wired in my house. I have my Ethernet cord from my router, and I carry my computer around the house because I have a long cord.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just am sharing, it looks like a lot of gobbledygook that I just shared, but it's actually a link to a really cool map that the county, the ag department put together of all the different farmers markets and food farm stands. So I would just recommend calling if there's a phone number if you decide to try to go to one to check out what their procedures are just during this time. Some people still have a great, um, you know, they're open and have their farm stands open, and others are just doing online orders. So I would just check that map, see where you are in relation to some of those places, and that will give you access. Sorry to go back to that, but
No, I think that's great. We do need that. There are so many different resources that we know. For us, it feels like natural that everybody should know this, and I'm pretty sure that most people on this call actually do know. You know, it doesn't hurt even if we have nothing going on to do the occasional castor oil pack. It's really wonderful for the skin. It's great for hair too. It's been in cosmetics and in beauty care forever. You know, between Cleopatra and African queens, it is very very well used. I like it. It grows hair. It lengthens your eyelashes. It's great for your eyebrows, for your fingernails, for the nail bed in the winter when I've been out and mulching or do anything in the garden. You know, my skin doesn't like the I wear leather gloves, you know, and when I'm outside and it gets cold and dry, then the leather chafes my fingertips, and so I clear that with castor oil packs. So it's really great. It works well for all sorts of things.
do you have a favorite brand, Henrietta, that you use?
No, not really. No, I mean,
Pretty generic substance that doesn't.
well, it is. At the same time, you could choose to buy it organic, which is always better. You should always get it cold pressed and actually in a glass bottle. So the ones that are locally available often tend to be in plastic, but a glass bottle would be good.
So it has a lot of uses, but the first one you mentioned was for like gastrointestinal, like stomach
And
problems, right? But it
no,
gets good.
no, because that's where the vagus nerve sits on the abdomen, right? And so that's where the new connections are made. So it isn't just for local issues. Yes, of course. I mean, when I had a lump in my breast ages ago, I put this across my breasts, you know, because it was localized, and castor oil breaks up tumors and deposits and things like that. Could be calcium, could be whatever it is. You know, when the body puts things in tumors, it has it hidden. Cutting into that is a really bad idea, which most of you know already. So the idea is that you try to melt it so that the natural dissolution of such a tumor or a polyp or whatever it may be goes the natural way into the bloodstream, gets eliminated there, rather than cutting into it. And now the thing is open, now the whole waste can just stream out. And that is particularly important for lymphatic systems, for the lymph nodes. And talking about the lymph nodes, bouncing, rebounder. Rebound and yeah, lots of bouncing, jumping, jacks, you know, what do we call these? Jump rope?
Jump rope, yeah.
Right. And dry skin brushing from the extremities to the body. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
So I just, to clarify, so with the castor oil pack, so do you take the castor oil and soak a cloth and then put that on, and do you usually put something like plastic on top and then something warm to allow the castor oil to seep in, or do you just sometimes just rub it?
I have a whole blog on my website on how to do one and what to do it for. So that's real easy. But to answer your question, that's why I said you can actually find ready-made pads online. I made several for myself, because castor oil stains.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be in our oldest pajamas and have a sheet over the regular sheets, but it need not be that way, because when you do it that way, it invariably leaks, you know. And I have a green towel that doesn't show the stains. I swear to God, I have always used it for that. That towel is twice the weight. It normally is. The oil doesn't wash out, right? So that goes usually over it, and then a heating pad over that. Now, some people say you don't need a heating pad. I prefer heat because not only does it make me feel good, but dry heat is actually really helpful in driving things in. You know, if you have substances on the outside and you have it, you just warm it over the towel. So a wool flannel, and wool flannel cloth is either available online or you can get it at the health cupboard on North 5th Street Highway. And so they have that. They also have castor oil, but only in the plastic bottles. You put that on and it's large enough to fit across your whole abdomen. I mean, you soak it in castor oil, which you have warmed, not heated, but warmed. Ideally use a double boiler, or just be really careful that it doesn't get too hot. Then you put the cloth in, and then it's just messy with your hands for a while. But again, I mean, it's really good for the hands. And not soaking, dripping, it holds the oil, and you can reuse that cloth a lot. If it's a wool flannel undyed, you can use that a lot, much better than cotton. So it soaks it up, you put it on, and in between uses, you can put it in the fridge.
And Henrietta, there's a couple questions. Is there any instance when you would take castor oil and ingest it?
I wouldn't. It's nasty. I am not of the generation where we had to take castor oil. I think that was very much here. Castor oil, when you take it internally, gives you the runs. That was the idea.
As a laxative.
Yes, yes. Whenever you look at studies of Casey and all that, you don't see that internal. It's all in. The biggest benefit of castor oil is not internal; it's out. It's external.
Topical application is what you're suggesting here.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks
And
for the clarification.
The drink, you might as well do a salt. What is that? A fleet enema if you really need to. Just as brutal.
Okay, seeing if there's any. Does anybody have any other questions on this topic? And I'll look for that blog post so I can post that in the.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, do any of you? No, everybody is so smart now. There's no more questions. We've done Marie. Oh, and Marie, I wanted to find out where and when will you sell product again? Not just for myself, but for the audience.
Yeah. So I do the West Reading Farmers Market, and the schedule is very up in the air right now. So if people look at my website, I will have new dates posted there. But I do the West Reading Farmers Market. Hopefully we'll be in Kimberton and Douglasville soon.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Awesome.
Yeah, I hope so, if I can keep production up. And then if anybody's ever interested, you can always just reach out and contact me, and I'm happy to do a delivery.
Fennel and straight kraut. I mean, the curry and the fennel apple.
Yes, got it. I have your over to you, which I will.
Okay, I can pick them up too. Okay. Anyone else? Beth, did you have any questions at all?
Hold on, Beth. Hold on, Beth.
Oh, they're muted.
Hold on. Wait a second. I'm trying to unmute you, and it's not working. Can you do it on your side? Okay. No? My button, like, not clicking.
To the bottom.
Yeah,
on the left side. There.
Yeah.
the little, you got it.
No, I just am recapping from the last one, and this one is fabulous, but no, I don't have anything on my,
Great.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Someone asked about the notes, and I'll send an email out. I know I have some of your emails. If you haven't been, or if you know you're not on the Farmhouse Classroom email list, please feel free to send me your email address if you want to be kept up to date on all of the happenings that we're going to still have going on for Farmhouse Classroom. Thanks, Peggy. I had a question I thought, but now it escaped me. Oh, someone asked about talking a little bit more and having maybe a couple pictures of, I don't know if you have pictures of the tapping. If you could talk a little bit more about the tapping, Henrietta, as a form of relaxation and stress reduction.
Yes, I actually have it right here. I guess it came through, but I didn't know how much time you wanted to spend on here. All right, so the sentence again is, you would be basically, can you see me?
Yep.
Okay, you would be basically tapping on the karate chop point. So that's the fleshy part between the end of your little finger and your wrist bone. And you would say the words, even though, the words that are on the screen, even though I feel, however you feel, even though I feel afraid or even though I feel unhappy, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And if you feel, yeah, that's a whole lot of baloney, and the little guy on your shoulder says, absolutely not true. How can you say that? Yeah, right. You know, you're not telling the truth. This is not about truth telling. This is about replacing what is going on with something that is more pleasant. And if you feel really hard saying that, you can say, even though I feel unhappy, I choose to love and accept myself, or I want to grow to love and accept myself. So you soften the language so it doesn't seem to be so super intense. So you can do that. And so the tapping points then, after you do the karate chop, you repeat things about 3 times. And then you start with the, now see, this is a little different in the way it's organized. I don't start at the top of the eye.
Henrietta, we don't see your screen yet. I'm sorry, we were seeing you tapping, but I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay. Now that I'm seeing the reflection in your glasses, I'm like, oh, she's looking at something, and she's
yes. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so hang on, right there.
There you go.
All right. So this is what this isn't. What do you mean can't go there? This is what it sounds, what it looks like. So even though I feel unhappy, I deeply love and accept myself. So you can do this easily and find the discomfort that you had before. So the way you usually would start this is you gauge how upset or how uncertain or how confused or whatever it is you're feeling you are, and you get a number between 0 and 10. So we can do this real quick all together. Even though I don't know enough about the microbiome to help heal myself, I choose to love and accept myself anyway. Even though I don't know what I'm doing here and I don't understand everything, I want to learn and I know that I can absorb it. Even though I'm a little confused about the whole thing and I don't know where to start, I choose to love and accept myself anyway. So you do this 3 times and then you go to the top of the head. Now here's the reason why we do this. Generally, when we have feelings we don't like very much, we push against them, right? We don't want to feel those because they're so incredibly uncomfortable. I'd rather curl up over here somewhere and wait till it goes away. That's literally what people tell me. I just wait till it goes away. Well, you don't have to. You know, your feelings are your inner children that are simply saying, you know, I really have hang-ups here. I don't know why I feel uncertain, but I do. And you're supposed to let me know that you got this. So, all right. So then, for example, it goes to the inner eyebrow and you only tap on the bone. So I'm so uncertain. I'm not sure what I have to do. So basically you follow the gist of where you were before and just expressing the feeling, this feeling of uncertainty, right? And then you go, so it's always on the bone. Don't pound your eye too much. Then 2 fingers on the top of your lip, this uncertain feeling. And then the next one, you go down to the top of your chin, which you can see here, this uncertain feeling. Then you have your collarbone, and right to the right and left of it, underneath the bone, there's a soft spot right here. This is K1 in the meridian, it's kidney 1 where it starts. So, and it's a lot to do with soothing fear. Here you go, this uncertain feeling. And then you go under the arm, about 4 inches under your armpit, generally about in the middle of your bra strap, this uncertain feeling. This uncertain feeling. So ideally, what happens, and you can just keep going, what happens is that whatever it is that you want to tap on or need to tap on, after seeing it that it may have been a 6 or a 7 or more, you get to gauge again how you feel. Generally, touching these points soothes your breathing and gets to a place of more equilibrium. And you take a deep breath when you're done with one round, and you just keep doing it. So there are lots of places where you can find tapping charts where you can learn from it. And YouTube has a ton of, the tappingsolution.com is the Ortners that do incredibly well. Nick and Jessica Ortner, they're brother and sister. They do extremely well with all of this. So it's good to go and have something that when you feel totally stressed, that you get to a place of better soothingness, better equilibrium. Okay. Any other questions? And thank you for asking that. It's a great tool. I love it.
Oh, here's a question. Should everyone take a probiotic?
Most emphatically, yes. However, what's even more important is that your gut actually learns to accept it, that you're not overrun by other microbes. Hence again, inulin and fiber, other fibers. I would say someone who has really healthy digestion, a healthy elimination, let's say, where the stool is well formed in one piece, not blobby, not soft, not really hard, and what I call sheep bumbles, you know, those black things that I get when I eat chocolate, because that's just what happens to me. So I don't eat it. And if you're not constipated and if you don't have diarrhea, you're probably in pretty good shape. Still, you should use fiber. You should use the inulin. You can get it as a supplement. Again, flax seeds, raw flax seeds, that's in the notes from the last time. And it's also described, if you listen back to part 1 of this, we talk about it. Flaxseed in a little bit of hot water. It helps act like a broom. And you don't care about the flax seeds omega profile, because that's not important in this case. It is simply important that it actually acts like a broom through the alimentary canal. Aloe gel is really good, aloe juice. Jicama is great, burdock root, like Anne-Marie showed you in the beginning. And of course, to help this along, you want some of her probiotic yummies, sauerkraut, all that.
Someone else also asked, is a prebiotic more important than a probiotic?
It's not more important, but it's a precursor to having a really healthy gut. So again, like if you have conditions, like I mentioned before, uncertain digestion, you eat really irregularly all the time, or you eat all the time and you don't give your gut enough space, you end up with uncertain and uneven elimination. And at that point, it's really more important to create a prebiotic. Do that for a week or 10 days on a regular basis, both through food and fiber, and watch your elimination. And then take a probiotic. Take a probiotic that has a lot of good stuff in it.
I always think about it as the prebiotic it's the food for the probiotic. So the probiotics is the good bacteria, and the bacteria, in order to be happy, just like we need good food, they need good food, and it's pretty much the same good food that they like, that our whole body likes. It's
the polysaccharides in the aloe and in the inulin that actually feeds them. They eat it. So in their eating it, and they want to stay more. They want more of it, but then that gives them a reason to stay put, and actually fight for us, which is what we want.
I thought it was interesting, Henrietta, when you were talking a little bit about glutathione and how important it is like this master antioxidant in the body. But when you look at some of the foods that help support glutathione production, it's many of the same foods that are the prebiotics. So asparagus and, the sulfur.
Artichokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for us, it's, those of us who have been in this for a while, it's such a no-brainer. And I get that people who come to this new or without the background that we have, um, start with the prebiotic and eat healthier. See, the bottom line to the whole thing is not vegetarian, omnivore, or even vegan eating, fish or fowl or animal products or any of that. Your body is individually yours. So you get to figure out at what point in your life is it the right time to eat more or less animal flesh, at what point, which has no fiber, by the way, just so that you know, which is also pro-inflammatory. Now, I'm not counter, pro, or con. I eat fish occasionally. I hardly eat meat, but I must say that I noticed it when my body craves carbs. I know it's my signal to go back to eating meat. So then I get to have a couple of maybe a hamburger, or I don't really like chicken or turkey, but turkey is a good food for me, but I'm not right. So I'll get a steak or something, you know. I come from a place where cured meats are really high. Europe is full of cured meats, and I always thought they were much better than the ones we get over here. And to some extent, that's true, but they're also loaded with the nitrates and the nitrites and all of those extras, you know, that create more inflammation, and they're just not healthy for us. They're not good for us. So what you end up with is listen to your body. Body, do you want to eat this today? Go to the supermarket, to the vegetable aisle, and take a look what turns you on. You know, I'm serious. You just go say, buddy, would you like some, I don't know, cucumbers today? And every once in a while, you know, like when I research something and something just hits me with a fact, I know it's for me. You know, so.
And also noticing things aftermath, like when you eat something, instead of just being in denial about the way you feel after you eat certain foods. I know for me, if I eat meat multiple days in a row, especially meat that I did not source myself, my joints hurt from the inflammation. Like my knees will hurt, my lower back will hurt a little more just because of the additional inflammation in my body. And that I've noticed that, like, since I've started paying more attention to my body and how what I put in my mouth affects the way I feel. So just to pay attention to those things, both before you eat it and after you eat it.
It's a good point. It's a really good point. I used to get, when I ate bread, lots of bread, then stopped eating bread, and then ate bread again, my shoulder joints started to hurt. All right, so the gluten is really, it's a factor in my body. But I must say, there are two products that I've started using that makes the reaction much, much less intense. Because every once in a while, this girl just needs a crusty slice of sourdough bread from Anne from the Daily Loaf. I just have to. All of us who shop there love her food, and I'm going like I'm looking at it, and it smells so good. And anyway, but if I do, and funny actually, the white flour sourdough I can handle much better than the whole grain, because the whole grain has all that, you know, gluten, the protein in the grain itself. So that I don't handle as well. But the two products are the Microbiome, right? So ionbiome.com. And the other one is Mega Mucosa from microbiomelabs.com. You need a practitioner who sells it. There are several of us in the area who do. You can order it through me. I can order it for you and have it drop shipped. But the Mega Mucosa is a bunch of polyphenols, which are vegetable and fruit-derived antioxidants and nutrients, and amino acids, which help heal the gut lining. Between these two, I'm actually not, you know, sneezing and coughing and hacking away like sometimes when I have gluten stuff.
I love what you said, though, that, you know, when you start to crave more carbs, you know that it's time for meat. So just the fact that, you know, really none of us should have this kind of dietary edict, you know, and be so rigid about things, because our bodies are always changing and we need to be flexible and understand what's a craving because of pathogens, and then what's a craving because, you know, of something else. So yeah, it's really about listening to your body.
It's a really good point between the, is it because the microbes want it? The microbes always talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the good or the bad guys, right? And when we get to the place where we get to figure out, okay, so wait a minute, when it's sugar, when it's too much salt, when it's serious gluten, pasta, carbs, we kind of know enough to know that that's a little excessive. Now, for me, I put on weight if I don't have protein from time to time, because protein, the animal flesh, in so many ways, not fish, but the density of the animal flesh is in essence an irritant to our system. So what it does, the body does very well. This is what the keto diet, right? I mean, you have it. It's fats, which are great for butyrate production, which is a really good metabolite that we do need, that we cannot, well, you can try to supplement with it, but it's much better when it comes from the fat that you eat and from the foods that you eat. So the keto diet is very few vegetables, no carbs at all, right? And so much protein, 100 grams a day. That is insane. I don't even know how the body does not get inflammatory by that. That is, I have a client who's completely on this track and he's happy with it and he feels better with it. It's not going to last. You know, we started with the Atkins diet where we had so much protein all the time. And that's just not, that's not tenable. So like you said, Anne-Marie, gauge where you are, gauge what you need, gauge if it's what season it is. You know, in winter, go to the softer vegetables, the pumpkins, the squashes, the corn, if that's something that you really like. The other thing you can do, if you're not sure where to start and you don't want to do the Biome test, you can online, you can order a blood test from, hang on a second, I think I got this here, get actually your blood typed, and then you can go and get the eating according to your blood type, right? So that's actually really interesting as well.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that last time about eating seasonally and locally, but that can help too. And I think it goes along with, if you listen to your body, if you get to the point where you're kind of, it's a very like Ayurvedic idea, right? Where you are just in tune with the kind of flow and energies of the earth and the seasons, and you eat what's in season. So right now it's going to be the storage vegetables and potatoes and things that aren't necessarily growing right now but are available to us. And the same in spring and summer. You know, whatever's growing right now is probably what you should be eating.
Yes, especially since onions are cleansing. And leeks have a lot of good fiber. The inulin is in leeks as well. And asparagus, like you said, it's a great kidney cleanser too. So I just want to...
Asparagus will be up soon.
Yes, it's coming. Did you find your link, Henrietta? That's what you're working on.
I am working on that right now.
Okay.
You know. The other thing you can do if you feel that you have overeaten or have food poisoning or any of that, it's a really great idea to get some charcoal.
The activated charcoal, they come in capsules. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Not just your baguettes from underneath your grill. Don't chomp on them.
Or from the fireplace.
Yeah. No.
No. Oh, I just had it. Good grief.
Bye, Beth.
Bye, Beth.
Bye, Beth. I'll find it.
Okay, no problem.
Courtney, I don't know if you wanted me to do, I have a bowl here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I had it on the agenda. I was going to ask. I didn't know if you decided not to, but yeah, sure.
No, want to, and you have time.
Yeah, we can have a little bit of a live fermentation demo here from Anne-Marie. That's great.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I started to do a little bit of it beforehand, but at our last call 2 weeks ago, I just kind of gave an explanation of how to make sauerkraut. And I thought, well, we could just do it and I can show you what it kind of looks like. So basically, you know, I just get a head cabbage. So this is a green cabbage, just a European cabbage. And I will peel off just maybe like 1 or 2 outer leaves. And the ferments, it's called lactofermentation, and it really has nothing to do with dairy. It's really all about the lactobacillus bacteria. And these lactobacillus bacteria are present on the skins of all of these vegetables. And it's particularly high in all of the ground vegetables like cabbages. So I chop the cabbage up. You can do it in a food processor. You can do it by hand and stick it in a bowl. Now with fermentation, it's really all about time and temperature, and it is what's called an anaerobic process. So it means that when you are fermenting things, you are fermenting it without the presence of oxygen. And basically what happens is you take your cabbage and you stick it in a bowl, and kind of a, you know, so folks can see that. So stick it in a bowl and then add salt. So the rule of thumb that I use, I actually use like a 2% brine for my cabbage. So that means I will weigh out my cabbage. And I usually do it in grams. And then I do 2% of that weight in salt. So for example, this was 900 grams of cabbage that ended up in here. So I ended up doing 18 grams of salt that I added to this. Now when you're doing it at home, a rule of thumb that's pretty good is about 3 tablespoons of salt to about 5 pounds of vegetables. And the salt that I use, I don't use like a kosher salt or a pickling salt. I use a very mineral-rich salt. So I'll either use something like a Celtic sea salt, and right now I'm using Redmond's real salt, which is mined out of Utah. So just, it has a lot of minerals in it. And
Excuse me, can you repeat the ratios again, please?
Sure. So if you're doing it at home, just kind of eyeballing it, it's about 3 tablespoons of salt to about 5 pounds of vegetables. Otherwise, it's basically a 2% salt mixture that you're going to use. So you just weigh it and then times that by 0.02 to get your salt. And what the salt actually does is it helps keep the putrefying bacteria away while the beneficial bacteria begin to proliferate on the cabbage. And so when you have your cabbage in the bowl, you're just going to take your hand, or if you have a little sauerkraut pounder, you're just going to start to massage that. And you're actually working the salt into the cellulose of the cabbage. And what you're doing is you're breaking all of that down. So you're getting enough surface area on the cabbage for the salt to really enervate the cabbage in there. Now, how quickly your salt is going to get into your cabbage really depends on the size that you slice your cabbage. So if you do it really thinly shredded, the salt is going to get in there more quickly because there's more surface area on that cabbage. If you have really kind of long, thick shreds, it's going to take longer for the salt to get in and really do its job. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what you want to do basically is just to start to massage it, and you'll see that the volume of your cabbage is going to go way down as all of the liquid gets released. Now I'm not using a brine, I'm not pouring any water in here. This is liquid, if you can see it dripping, released from pounding it and doing the salt in there. And that's what you want. And I always say fermentation is part art and part science, and I like to think it's more art than science. So for me, the science part is really how much salt are you using, because you want to have enough to make sure that it doesn't go bad. You don't want to use too much salt. And, you know, temperature, and that, you know, making sure that it's anaerobic. The art piece for me is like tasting it, you know, and seeing, does this taste salty? It should almost taste like, a little salty, almost like your pasta water would taste when you salt, you know, your water to make pasta. The salty flavor is going to dissipate as the kraut ferments on. And then the art part is you are free to add whatever you like to this bowl of cabbage. So I will add sometimes sea vegetables. So I use things like dulse. You can do aramay, works really, really nicely. Although it's a little bit stronger tasting, but dulse is really nice. You can chop up some fresh kale in here and throw kale in, carrots, celery, anything, fresh herbs, cilantro, parsley. fresh spice or, spices like cumin seed, coriander seed, anything like that. It's just really not limited at all. It's really just all about your imagination and just tasting, leeks are a great thing to put in here. Onions are great things to put into your kraut. Bell peppers actually will ferment really nice. You can make like a salsa. And then I just take a quart-sized mason jar and you just start to fill your jar. And because it is an anaerobic, I'm getting cabbage on my computer, because it is anaerobic, what you're going to be doing is just taking your hand and pushing out all of those air bubbles in there. And when you do that, you'll see that the liquid is going to come right on top of the cabbage. I thought I had enough cabbage, well maybe I do. So with a size jar, a mason jar like this that has the shoulder on it, what I'll do is usually fill the kraut up to about here, because as it sits, it is going to create carbon dioxide and it is going to rise to the top. So you just want to make sure that you're going to leave enough room up here for the carbon dioxide to go up and kind of escape. So I have some liquid left over in my bowl. The liquid is just going to get poured off to go right on top of that. Actually, that is the perfect amount. And I put a top on it.
Anne Marie, someone's asking if they could add apple cider vinegar.
You could. It's not going to help with the ferment. Well, raw apple cider vinegar could help with the fermentation. You could experiment with it, but this is a traditional ferment that does not use vinegar at all. So as the kraut ferments, it is going to get very acidic and taste, kind of very vinegary. So that is just, a taste preference, but you certainly can add it.
If you were looking to add the flavor of apple, you could probably just add some apple, right?
Absolutely, add some apple, yeah. And so the sweeter things that you add, things that have more sugar, your ferment might go off a little bit more quickly. So basically, have my jar right here, I take my cover, and I will put the cover on tight. Some people don't and just leave it off like this or put a towel over it and check it every day. But I tend to put this on, and then I will put it on a plate somewhere on a counter where it is out of direct sunlight. And I'll go over to it every day and I'll just release the lid a little bit to release that carbon dioxide. So you're basically burping your ferment. And, after about a week, you can go in and with clean hands and a clean spoon, just taste it and see if you like that flavor. See if you want it to set, a little bit longer. If you are using something like apples, or sometimes raisins are really delicious if you put a curry spice in there, or shredded carrots tend to be very sugary, or beets tend to be very sugary. The fermentation is going to go off a lot more quickly because those microbes are going to be eating all of that sugar, so it's going to ferment faster. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Any questions? So
Yeah.
easy.
You guys have any other questions? I know it's kind of like the possibilities are endless, right? And it's about, the art part is about experimenting.
Yeah, and don't be afraid of it. Really don't be afraid of it. So when you're done, so also the color of the kraut is going to change. So it's very green right now. And as it ferments, and by later tonight, I am going to start to see bubbles in here. So you're going to start to see some bubbling. By about day 3 or 4, the color is going to change, and it's going to be almost white, but it's going to be very bright, very crisp colored. If your kraut turns brown, then you can assume that there was somehow air in there. So either you didn't have the brine up to the top, or your lid was open too much. I think that we're all smart enough to know when something goes off, right? And so it's really also about trusting your intuition. So if you open it, if you see mold growing on the top, I don't eat anything that has mold growing. I will throw anything like that out because the mold grows down and I'm very sensitive to the mold. There are some, fermenters out there that are like, oh, I just scrape that off and I go to what's underneath, and then we start there. That can be a personal choice. I personally don't do it. But you might have a little bit of browning on top, and that's just oxidation. really, but you can smell if something has gone off. It should smell really nice and crisp and fermented, like sauerkraut. And and your body will tell you, no, this isn't good. I'm not going to eat it. But 9 times out of 10, even if it doesn't come out perfect, it's not harmful.
That's great.
What's the kind of time frame? I know you said about a week, and it's really a personal preference. Like, is there a too short of a time or a too long of a time?
I don't think that there's too long of a time. So what happens with the fermentation is once it starts to go off, all of these bacteria kind of come out in stages. And the longer it sits, the more bacteria you're going to have. And then the longer it sits, the more these bacteria are going to start to die off. So I like about, 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks. Some people do it for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, so it really just depends on a preference, but you can get a really nice bite to a sauerkraut, and still get a lot of crunch and have it be really good after about 2 weeks. In the summertime, when it's warmer and you're doing this in your home, you might go about 5 or 7 days and think like, okay, that's enough. I'm going to put it in my refrigerator now. And refrigeration just really slows down the fermentation process. It doesn't completely stop it. So it can sit in your refrigerator for a while and continue to age and mature.
What have you found that is there an optimal temperature? Like, I know when I did my pickles and stuff, I put them in the basement where it was probably about, I don't know, 65 degrees or something like that. Like, is there a optimal temperature, or do you kind of go just by feel, or do you have a thermometer that you use, or?
I don't use a thermometer, so ambient temperature around 70 degrees is usually really good, and you should start to get, fermenting within the first 3 days or something, a little bit more. If it's colder than that, it's just going to take longer for the thing, and that's fine. You just let it go longer.
Okay.
When I bought the kraut from you, I think actually Jane and I were together there at your stand, and you said when you open it, you said you don't put it under pressure or something. Yeah, can you explain that?
Yeah, so because it is a live food and it has all the probiotics in there, I do not heat seal the jars. So I make them in big vats and put them into pint-sized jars, which I choose not to seal. I don't heat seal them at all because I don't want to bring the product, up to a certain temperature. So
Got it.
when you buy my krauts, you don't get that pop of the lid because it was sealed. You get that pop of the lid because there's carbon dioxide in there that's, popping off. But, and, totally fine, nothing wrong with that. And it just goes in the refrigerator and sits, and it'll last you a good 6 to 8 months, if not longer, up to a year. So.
When it's been heat sealed or what?
I'm sorry?
It lasts that long when it's been heat sealed?
No, in the refrigerator, it will last that long.
So even if you opened it already?
Even if it's unsealed. Yeah, so basically when people buy my krauts, I always kind of explain they're essentially open because they're not sealed. They went from this vat into this vat, and now they're going to you. And then they'll last a good year, in the right environment, so cooler temperatures.
That's really interesting because yours don't last as long with me because I love them so
they're
much.
gone. They're gone.
Right, but what I noticed about others that are actually heat sealed, after about 3 weeks in the fridge after being opened, but not opened every day where air gets to it all the time, but it's been opened and then there is this much in the bottom that sometimes gets moldy.
Yeah.
So,
Things you can do too, if there's enough brine in your jars, every time you take some out, just take a clean spoon and push that kraut right back under the brine so that it stays
under the liquid. That's a good idea.
that's good. That's a good point.
Anne-Marie, did you, in any of your experiments, I know when I was reading up on pickling and other ferments, like specifically with lacto fermented, some recipes call for an ingredient with tannin. Do you know, like, have you ever experimented with that, or what benefits could that be, and what are some of the things you use? I know I used just a black bag of black tea. And
yeah.
Is it supposed to make it crunchier? I can't remember.
It's why I don't make pickles to sell, because they never, like cucumber pickles, because they never come out consistently for me. But something like a cucumber pickle, to keep the crunch and get a really nice crunchy pickle, is a little bit of the amount of salt that goes in there, and then also the tannins, which is just, you know, a chemical that helps keep the cucumber crispy when it's fermenting. So you could use grape leaves, work really well, horseradish leaves, oak leaves. You can use black tea.
Cool.
If you use black tea, you could probably just are going to color your brine a little bit, you know,
and possibly add a little flavor.
a little flavor and a little punch. But yeah, so anything like that would work out really well as long as they're not sprayed leaves.
Right. Cool. Oh, thank you, Henrietta, found the blood type link.
Yes,
so I'll make sure I add that.
I realized that it was going only to one person, so that doesn't work.
Oh, I know, I did that a couple times in the chat box too.
Did you put the Biome test at all in?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's up.
Did you put in the ion biome?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
That's in there.
And the mega mucosa too.
Oh, that one I think I missed. I'll get that one.
I'll do it.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions about the brain connection or about the fermenting process? That was great. Thanks, Anne-Marie. That was so cool. I think it was a good demonstration to show how easy it can be. And someone in the chat box while you were making it said that your products are so delicious.
They are. We can't wait to have more. I want you to have them at Kimberton. It's really so good. You know, sometimes people go and they get fermented foods, and then it is so acidic. I personally don't like vinegar at all, and I use lemon or lime. I don't use vinegar at all. And yours are just so delicious. They are soft in the taking the flavor, but my mouth just goes to it. You know, it's like water that you haven't been drinking, and you just go to it. So.
I'm sorry, is that if you are going to buy sauerkraut in a market, just make sure that you buy it in the refrigerated section, and that the only ingredients in there are cabbage and salt, and it's not pasteurized, and it says raw.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Just 2 years ago, that was really hard to find.
Yeah. Also, I know I mentioned this last week, but in case there's anyone new on the call, like we didn't really talk about all the different ways you can eat it. And the specific thing I wanted to just remind people is that it shouldn't be heated, because then you kill the good bacteria. So, you know, if you were to throw it in a pan like that were cooking things, you would kill the bacteria. So it wouldn't give you that health benefit. It would still taste really good, but it's to be eaten cold, right? Or, you know, room temperature on top of things like salads. And I know I put it on my egg sometimes, like after I plated it.
I would stir it into a soup, you know, that's come off, and I put, you know, soup in a bowl, and then I'll add something, and it's really nice. So.
I usually recommend a couple of forkfuls with each meal, just out of the jar. I mean, I'm alone, so out of my jar.
So I can mention, Marty and I were just messaging a little bit, and Marty, Farmhouse Kitchen is actually going to start carrying the krauts.
Yay!
Fantastic.
Great.
That's awesome. Good job.
And we also, I know you mentioned vinegar, that you don't really like it, but that is another way that you can get some, you know, if it's raw, unfiltered vinegar, it's also, you can get some good gut benefits if you use it in homemade salad dressings, things like that. Or I know we have gotten out of the habit a bit, but just like you said with citrus, with lemon or lime juice, Henrietta, you could in the morning, just to get your kind of digestive system woken up, you can take that in some water, but you could also do that with some apple cider vinegar or any kind of raw unfiltered vinegar.
Yeah, I do actually with the mother. That way it's all right, but to me it's more medicinal.
Right.
Yeah.
There we found Vine Street Vinegar is I'll put the link. They're a local, they use local organic products, and they have a raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar that there's all different flavors, and we found some of them are so palatable that you can almost take them raw, but just in a little bit of water, they're really tasty, actually.
Great.
Any other questions from everybody? Everybody's been quiet tonight.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely going to try that sauerkraut. It looks so good. You know, like when you were talking, you were massaging it on the side. It just looks so good.
On the kraut.
Yeah. Put some fennel seeds in it, yeah? Yeah. So when you put the one with the kraut, the sauerkraut, with the, is it fennel or apple?
Both apple and fennel, it has both.
You don't ferment those two, you just add them in the jar when you let them ferment.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So they're all mixed up in this bowl together before it goes into the jar to ferment. So it all ferments.
Okay, great. Yeah. And do you shred the apples or do you chop them?
Shred the fennel and add some fennel seed.
Nice.
Citrus in them. You could do citrus rind, you know, citrus juice, lemon, lime, orange, anything.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. One of these days we'll hopefully be back in person. We can do it live.
Yes, it will be on the docket to have a workshop for sure, a fermentation workshop. I can give a minute to, I am, just for those of you who are left, I am working on our May Farmhouse classroom discussions, and it'll actually, we're going to continue the fermentation discussion. So we'll have some additional people to talk to. I'm reaching out. I don't want to say anybody's name until I have them confirmed, but we could potentially have some people talking about kombucha, about fermented sourdough breads, about a local cider maker who I've reached out to, so she might be on. She ferments everything. So I'm hoping that she'll be able to make it onto the call. So just stay tuned. Once I get confirmations from everyone to participate, I will send out messages for the date and have a Facebook event created and send out a message to the Farmhouse Classroom newsletter. So I saw a couple of you did put your email address. So if you don't want to miss the next class, please, you can send your email. You can do it privately if you don't want to share it with everybody. And I'll make sure to add you to the list so that you won't miss the upcoming events. And also, if you have suggestions for topics that you'd like to cover, because we really only had things planned up till May. So there's a lot of things to cover. So if there's a specific wellness related, food related topic that you'd like us to cover, please reach out and let us know, because we, like to cater to you guys and what you're interested in and what you want to learn more about. Any other questions? You guys are so quiet.
We must have been doing a good job.
Yeah, you guys are just so explanatory. Oh yes, Marty says Farmhouse Kitchen will have vinegars too. We actually were carrying Vine Street vinegar there. We have a few flavors. So that will also be for sale at Farmhouse.
When does Farmhouse open for takeout now?
Well, we're hoping around the second week of May, but nothing's for sure yet. We still have to wait. Marty, are you there?
I'm gonna say, I'm diving in the pool, May 8th.
Oh my gosh, are you sure you want to announce that publicly in case it's we're shooting for it?
No,
All right.
I have the go ahead from, yes.
All right.
May
8th for takeout, and we're working on an online ordering system also. So we're hoping to have that up and running so people can order ahead online. You're still more than welcome to call in, but but we're working on that too, so that it can be as convenient for everyone as possible.
My dogs totally enjoyed it.
I saw there's some chin scratching going on there.
Anytime I try to do anything, I sit down, they have to be with me. So they were on top of the screen, they were on top of the computer. So it was great. So
Lots of good energy with them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we could end a little early. Does anyone have any additional burning questions that they don't want to miss? And if you don't get them in, did you have one, Marty? Do you have any questions?
no, I'm just wrestling with my dog.
You're welcome. People are saying thank you. So I think people are ready to wrap it up, but I want to thanks for the announcement, Marty. And I want to thank Henrietta and Anne-Marie for coming back again to share their wealth of knowledge and their expertise with the group. And just stay tuned for future announcements for classes coming up, and feel free to suggest anything that you might want to learn more about. Any closing statements, ladies?
No, I think there's a lot of information that's been shared, and we're always around.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
it's not like we're going anywhere anytime soon.
We're here.
Free to ask. I always offer people to just email me if you have a question that so.
Yeah, that's true too. If there's something that you didn't feel comfortable asking here, always feel free to reach out. So thank you all for being here. And yes, Marty, what's up?
Is there a way that we can put a code, a promotion code on the ordering process so that all the people who have been involved in these classrooms get a percentage off and a code?
Yeah, I think we could figure that out for sure. I will write a note about it.
Okay, because that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
That's very generous of you, Marty. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Holy cow.
Anne-Marie, you didn't get to do closing statement. Well, thank you so much. This was really great. I enjoyed it, and it's just really nice to see how resilient communities can be just in the midst of what we're going through right now. So I just really appreciate this opportunity to be in community.
Yes, I echo that. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. We so appreciate you and your time, and everyone that joined in. We really appreciate your time and being here and sharing this time and this space with us. Even though we can't be together in the same room, we think it's important to keep this message of taking care of ourselves and learning new skills and having information to help us just feel good and stay healthy. So thank you very much, everyone. And we will see you in a couple of weeks for another Farmhouse classroom. Thanks a lot. Have a great night. Thank you, ladies.
Bye. Thank you.
Hold on, you're still here.
I know. Why? Okay, I'm going now. There, I'm gone, right?
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.